I was only 13 when I came home from school and found nothing but silence. No note, no goodbye, just an empty house and my own echo. My parents were gone, vanished like smoke. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe they'd be back after work. Maybe there'd been an emergency. I waited at the window until the sky turned black and the streetlights hummed, but they never came back. Days passed. The fridge was empty. The phone never rang. That's when it hit me. I had been abandoned. I didn't cry. I searched. I begged the neighbors for clues, went to the police, even asked my teachers. But the answer was always the same. No one knew where they'd gone. I wasn't enough for them to stay. That thought lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. And for years, I'd twist it deeper every time I remembered their faces. The state took me in. A small foster home with peeling wallpaper and rules written in anger. No one asked how I felt. I was just another mouth to feed, another broken kid in a broken system. But something inside me refused to break completely. I'd lie awake at night, replaying their betrayal. That pain, it became fuel. I didn't know how yet, but I made myself a silent promise. They would see me again, one day. And when they did, I'd be untouchable, unrecognizable, powerful. They would regret every second they lived without me. For now, I had to survive. I cleaned houses on weekends, studied under the sheets with a flashlight, and never, not once, showed anyone how much I was hurting. Let them think I was quiet, invisible. That was fine. I had learned the art of staying silent while building something no one could see coming. Foster care taught me how to disappear, not physically, but emotionally. I learned that speaking up only made you a target. So I became quiet, observant. While the other kids fought, cried, or begged for attention, I watched. I studied everything. The way adults lied with smiles, how rules shifted depending on who was watching, how pain could be swallowed whole and turned into focus. Silence became my weapon. And in that silence, I started building a version of myself no one saw coming. At school, I was the girl with secondhand clothes and eyes too tired for her age. But behind the scenes, I devoured books. Psychology, business, coding, anything I could find in the dusty library or free online. I started tutoring other kids for lunch money, saving every cent like it was gold. I wasn't trying to be popular. I was preparing for something bigger. Revenge wasn't just about anger, it was about strategy. And mine was slowly unfolding. I didn't know where my parents were or why they left, but I fantasized about the moment we'd meet again. Not with screaming or tears. I'd show up with quiet success, the kind that speaks louder than any apology. I imagined their faces when they realized the daughter they discarded had built something they could never touch. At 16, I got a scholarship to a community college. I lied about my age, worked night shifts at a diner, and rented a shoebox apartment that smelled like mold. It didn't matter. I was free. Every sacrifice, every lonely night was a brick in the empire I was building, one they'd never see coming. It happened by accident. I was working a double shift at the diner, exhausted, greasy, invisible, when a woman walked in wearing confidence like perfume. She ordered coffee, sat with her laptop, and started typing like the world was on fire. I couldn't stop watching her, not because she was rich or beautiful, but because she was in control. She looked like she didn't need anyone's permission to exist. I craved that feeling. When I brought her check, I asked what she did. She smiled, barely looking up. "Startups," she said. "I build things people don't see coming." Her words hit me like lightning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I searched everything I could about startups, tech, online businesses. I realized something. I didn't need anyone's money or permission to begin. I just needed an idea and the guts to go all in. That weekend, I launched my first online store. Nothing fancy, just handmade jewelry I'd been crafting in secret, using beads from discount bins. I took free online marketing classes, created social media accounts, and began selling piece by piece. It was slow, painful, and awkward. But every tiny sale felt like proof that I could make something out of nothing. Just like she did. Just like I would. And then, one night, a customer tagged me in a photo. A small influencer. wearing my bracelet. Orders exploded. I cried in the shower that night, not because I was sad, but because something real was finally happening. For the first time, I didn't feel like someone abandoned. I felt like someone becoming. Success didn't arrive in a limousine. It came in waves of exhaustion, rejection, and moments where I nearly gave up. But I didn't. My tiny business turned into something people started noticing. I reinvested every dollar, learned branding, supply chains, SEO, customer service. I became a one-woman army. By the time I was 19, I had employees, a warehouse, a six-figure revenue. People called it luck, but I knew better. This wasn't luck. This was war. My silent revenge. I started attending networking events, pretending I belonged. Men twice my age tried to pat me on the head with condescending smiles. "Wow, good for you," they'd say. But I didn't need their approval. I wasn't building for praise. I was building for proof. I was building for the little girl left behind with an empty fridge. For the teenager who slept with a knife under her pillow in a moldy apartment. For the woman who refused to break. Around this time, I changed my name legally. Dropped the last name my parents gave me. It felt symbolic, like a rebirth. I wasn't theirs anymore. I never had been. I was mine. And then, something strange happened. A message, an email, the sender, my father. After 7 years of silence, he had the audacity to reach out. No apology, no explanation, just, "Saw your company on the news. Let's talk." My heart didn't race. It froze. This was it. The moment I had imagined 1,000 times, but nothing prepared me for how numb I actually felt. He didn't want me. He wanted proximity to power. And suddenly, I knew. This story wasn't just about becoming rich. It was about becoming untouchable. I didn't reply to his email. I upgraded my servers, hired a COO, and launched a second brand. While he waited in silence, hoping for a door to open, I built walls he'd never climb. This wasn't about revenge in the way people imagine it. Yelling, crying, confronting. No, my revenge was quieter. It looked like Forbes lists, luxury office leases, and my name on contracts they couldn't pronounce. I didn't need to scream. My success spoke for me, but I won't lie. I did read that email over and over, not because I missed him. I didn't. But because I wanted to understand the type of man who could leave his daughter to rot, then come crawling back when she turned gold. That email reminded me why I worked until my fingers cramped and my eyes blurred. It reminded me who I was proving wrong. And as my company scaled, so did the attention, interviews, podcasts. Self-made, they called me. I hated that word. I wasn't self-made. I was forged. In fire. In silence. In every sleepless night I spent building a life no one thought I deserved. One night, I gave a talk at a women's entrepreneurship summit. I stood in front of hundreds of people and told them, "Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones who leave you to bleed, but we don't have to stay broken. We don't have to give them the ending they wrote for us." That video went viral. Overnight, I got messages from girls all over the world who saw themselves in my scars. That's when it hit me. Maybe this wasn't just about me anymore. Maybe I was building something bigger than vengeance. One night, I found an old shoebox under my bed. Inside it were scraps of my past, a photo of me at 12, eyes full of questions, cheeks still round with childhood. I stared at that picture for hours. She looked so fragile, so lost. And I whispered something to her, even if she couldn't hear me across time. "You made it." That's when I started writing. Not a business plan, not a press release, a letter to the girl I used to be. I poured it all out, every night spent hungry, every time I felt forgotten, every time I wanted to give up but didn't. I wrote about the anger I carried like armor, the pain I turned into purpose. I told her that she was never the problem, that being left behind wasn't her fault, that she was always enough. And as I wrote, something shifted. For years, I had used rage to fuel my rise. But now, I realized healing was the true power. Anyone can succeed out of spite, but to thrive without needing revenge? That was freedom. I was no longer chasing their approval. I was rewriting the story, not to punish them, but to honor myself. I framed that letter and put it in my office. So every time I made a deal, closed a contract, or sat in a boardroom full of powerful people, I'd remember exactly who I was doing it for. Not them, not their validation, but for her, the girl they left behind. I was in the middle of a product launch when the call came. A lawyer. My mother had died. No warning, no explanation, just gone. I hadn't heard her name in almost a decade. She'd never tried to contact me, not once. And now, her silence was permanent. He asked if I wanted to attend the funeral. At first, I said no. Why would I show up for someone who never showed up for me? But something inside me whispered, go. Not for her, for me. So I did. I wore black, not to mourn, but to mark the closing of a chapter. When I arrived, the room went still. People stared. They knew who I was. The daughter they never mentioned, the girl she abandoned, a woman they now couldn't ignore. I walked past whispered gossip, sat in the front row, and didn't shed a tear. I wasn't there for closure. I had already given that to myself. After the service, someone handed me a sealed envelope, her handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. One page, no excuses, no real answers. Just this: I was broken. I didn't know how to be a mother. I hope you became someone better than I was. I folded the letter and walked away. I didn't feel peace, not yet, but I felt done, and that was enough. A week after the funeral, he came to my office. No appointment, just walked in like he still had the right. My assistant tried to stop him, but I told her to let him through. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. I was ready. He looked older, smaller, like life had humbled him in ways I never had to. He sat across from me and stared, like he couldn't believe who I had become. You look just like your mother, he said, trying to smile. I didn't return it. He tried to explain, said they were young, said they thought I'd be better off, that they were struggling and didn't want to drag me down. I listened, not because I cared, but because I needed to hear it, how small their reasons were compared to the storm they left me in. Then he said the one thing that broke me. I'm proud of you. I leaned in and said it quietly. You don't get to be. And just like that, he looked away. I thanked him for coming and walked him out myself. Not because I respected him, but because I needed him to see with his own eyes what he gave up. He left without another word, and I stood at the glass window watching him disappear into the crowd, just like he had once disappeared from my life. But this time, I wasn't 13. I was whole, I was powerful, I was me. With both of them gone, one by death, the other by choice, I finally saw my life clearly. It wasn't just about what I had survived. It was about what I was building. My company was thriving, yes, but that wasn't the legacy I wanted to leave behind. Money comes and goes. What matters is who you lift while you rise. So I started something new, a foundation, not named after me, but after that girl they left behind. It provides housing, education, and business training for foster girls aging out of the system. The ones no one bets on. The ones who learn how to survive in silence, just like I did. I visit often. I tell them the truth. You're not broken. You were never the problem. And you are never, ever alone. I watch them change, shoulders back, eyes steadier, voices louder. That's the real empire, not the buildings or brands, but the belief I plant in each of them. That's the kind of revenge no one can touch. Transformation, not just of myself, but of others like me. I didn't just rewrite my story, I started handing out the pen. And sometimes, I still have bad nights. Ghosts don't disappear, they just get quieter. But now I sleep with peace on one side and purpose on the other. I am not a victim. I am not what they left behind. I am what I chose to become. Today, I walked into a room full of women, founders, leaders, survivors. They asked me to speak, and I did. But this time, I didn't talk about profits or market trends. I told them what really mattered: how how to turn broken pieces into power, how to use silence as strategy, how to rise without needing revenge, but choosing it anyway, just by thriving. Afterwards, someone asked, "Do you ever wish things had been different?" I paused, and then I said, "If they had stayed, I wouldn't have become this." My empire isn't made of gold or glass towers. It's made of every no I ever turned into a reason to keep going. Every moment I was overlooked. Every night I cried quietly and got up anyway. That's what my parents never understood. They thought leaving would break me, but they didn't leave a daughter behind. They unleashed a force. And if you're listening now, if you've ever felt invisible, disposable, like no one would notice if you disappeared, hear this. You are not what they did to you. You are what you decide to become after it. I was abandoned, but I didn't stay abandoned. I was forgotten, but I never forgot my own worth. They left me in silence. But I rebuilt in power, and now I don't walk with pain. I walk with grace as in fire.